Mr. Cottrell,
Here.
Mrs. Grandison. Here. Mrs. Host. Here. Mr. Miles.
Here.
Mrs. Wolf.
Here.
Can we stand for the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start out with accommodation, Mr. Lynch.
I want to commend the high school staff, Mr. Zimmerman and Mrs. Kahn for serving military families. That is a process of last year that Mr. Zimmerman has gone through, being a former military personnel himself, felt was important for him to try to achieve. So he had an award for recognition for doing so. We want to commend Mr. Zimmerman for that. We had teacher of the Tuscarawas County Arts Educator of the Year. We didn't have one, we didn't have two, but we had three. April Leinard, Carrie Kunkel, and Nicole Miles, all were Educator of the Year for the Tuscarawas County Arts Educator of the Year. Vince Terakidis is Twin City Chamber Teacher of the Year. That award he received that award last week. No, the weekend before. And he knew he was nominated, but they did not tell who was receiving the award until that evening. So that was a complete surprise to Vince. And then Kristen Metzger, she will be named Claymont Foundation Teacher of the Year on Saturday. She'll receive her award this coming Saturday. So I have, those are the ones that I have. In my presentation, I had a few others that we're going to acknowledge, but that's what I have for accommodations.
I have a, and I'm gonna, Dominic Gee was nominated for the overcoming obstacle award. So I want to congratulate him on that. I do not, and I apologize, we had some kids from the FFA department that received some awards. I believe Dax Peters was one, but I don't know. And I just didn't do my homework, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have to, there's a Facebook post that I just shared that had the award that they won, so I can look it up.
Yeah, so
But Dax did win,
I know he did, and a young, somebody, young.
Dots got her state degree,
Sure.
and we had students whose notebooks, like.
Notebooks were approved, yeah, got voted.
Yeah. They are.
So I apologize for that, but I do want to congratulate FFA on the great showing down in Columbus. And I think they had a great time. I also would like to offer our condolences to a longtime employee and administration at our school district, the passing of Mr. John Demuth. He was the principal over at Trenton Avenue for years. And just if you knew him, you liked him. I mean, there wasn't anything that you could not like about Mr. Demuth. That's all I have. Does anybody else have any?
It was stopped and added.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the high school choir and the band. Their concert was last Thursday at the high school. And they're small, but they're mighty. They did a really good job. So hats off to all the students and to Mr. Chambers and Ms. Leinard for all the work that they've done in trying to build that program back up. So.
Is anybody else?
Oh, with yours, Lois, Mr. Demuth or whatever I had down, I don't know if we ever said anything about Mr. Rick Cox that was here, that coach and talked. Just wanted to let his family knows that their thoughts and prayers are in there. And then also, it's an exciting time of year for the 2023 graduating class. So I wanted to congratulate them. I know here later in the month, and then on the agenda tonight, we're going to approve them, and just want to congratulate them and wish them all the best of luck.
Any other accommodations? Okay, we'll go into any public participation. Mr. Todd Marsh.
I don't know if I can get it all. Time right here, so.
And the one thing, Todd, we ask that you use the microphone and any participant does, that way when we record it, that they can hear their participants.
Perfect. All right, well, if anybody don't know me, my name's Todd Marsh. I graduated in 2003. And I've been involved with wrestling basically ever since then. I coached at Claymont all the way up. At Supton College, I was a CVCA for 2 years while I lived in Kent. But my daughter was born in 2014. I pulled out and started helping out the local 92 wrestling club. And that's when I noticed how big girls wrestling was. And it was insane how it was just exploding. And this chart I got right here, anybody wants one, I have more. It just shows the participation numbers across the United States. It's, if you look it up, it's the fastest growing sport in the United States. So I kept seeing, when I was seeing people transfer and things like that, I thought, yeah, we need to jump on this and be the first school to have it. That way people want to stay at Claymont or people want to come to Claymont to have this opportunity. So to that second page, I just showed some of the numbers that we had. So I just put it out there. Any girls interested. And so far, I've had a total of 34 different girls show up to our Friday practices. And the biggest group seems to be the junior high girls. And I know I have 2 other girls that want to come for sure, but they can't, they haven't got a chance to make it yet. We have girls in track that can't make it. So our attendance has been affected by those things, mainly track, cheerleading tryouts, softball. And the other thing is there's still Claymont parents that aren't okay with their daughters wrestling. I know for sure 8 girls that want to join, but their parents aren't quite there yet with letting them join. I'm trying to explain to them it is just against girls, but and that's 8 that I know. So I'm sure there's more out there other than those 8. So the next page here. I think the biggest challenge next year is going to be the youth, because there's a league right now for the boys. You pay $30, you go to Dover, you wrestle. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. The girls don't have that. So they're going to have to go to open tournaments. Those things cost up to $50 a tournament. There's a lot of traveling. I know that the families around here, sometimes they struggle with that or even getting them there. So that's going to be my biggest struggle next year. My plan is throughout the summer to practice from 3:30 to 4:30 on Fridays. That seemed like the best time because no other sports were going on. We can get in, get out, just show the interest. But there've been so many girls that want to keep doing it even more. I had to open up for Mondays from 6:30 to 7:30. We're doing open match, just a kind of an open practice at that time. So that's why I'm going to leave here right when this is done to kind of make sure I'm over for that. Yeah, like I said, the benefits of we want to beat I want to beat the other local schools. So that way we're the main school that has it around here. Like I said, I had a family from Connaughton Valley, they want to transfer their 2 daughters into a Claymont because of girls wrestling. Another family from Indian Valley said they want to bring their son and daughter into Claymont. So I was like, hey, so this is going to hopefully bring more attendance and more people into our school. The other thing is it increases opportunity for all girls of different sizes and abilities during the winter time to play sports, because not everyone's a basketball player and a cheerleader. So, and with the weight classes, that's something I think it's really going to benefit all the girls. The only thing I'm asking for the board is just for currently is to explore different ways for the girls to use the stadium this summer during the afternoon hours without I know there's a union fee and all those things like that with the old custodian, but I don't know if there's anything way we can just explore it or see what we can do to try to get our practices. Cause right now we have 0 funding. I mean, I don't have a dollar. I mean, I put my own money into getting anything started that we have now. Long haul, I'd like for the girls to be sanctioned as a girls sport. Cause this past year was the first year that girls wrestling was sanctioned by the state of Ohio. And it was huge. So it's just getting bigger and bigger. And I like to look into an all girls wrestling room. He said the high school would be an awesome area. He said, because if there was one put in, we wouldn't need access to it during cross country season. They could use it during baseball and softball season. They could use it. We could roll the mats up and share with the boys wrestling room like we're doing right now. So I don't know if you guys have any questions or.
I don't necessarily have a question, but I just want to tell you how awesome I think that is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My brother is the varsity wrestling coach at Mogador, and my niece is in junior high and she wrestled this year.
Awesome.
And down at state, they had the girls wrestling right beside the
Yes.
boys for state. So it is an up and coming sport, and I think it's fantastic.
It
that
is what I have girls right now saying they want to be the first girl state qualifier at
Yeah.
Claymont. I'm like, that is awesome. There's so many, good goals that we have our girls wanting to do.
It's great that you as a parent took the initiative to start,
Yeah.
the interest. And
It makes sure to, I know it was known, some people have said, well, you do it because you have two daughters. When I first started this, my two daughters were adamant they were not wrestling.
Mhm.
They did not want to wrestle when I started this. So I was like, I want to do it anyway because I want to see us Claymont have it before the other schools do. My daughters didn't start wrestling until after we did this. And you said, oh, people, well, you're doing it because your daughters. No, if I didn't do this and took my daughter, my youngest daughter, like I just did the past 3 months, I just drove her around to other clubs. She got so much better so quick. And I could have easily just, so me doing this is actually going to slow down her progress because now I have her like, hey, we have to go back to square one with everybody else. So it's actually slowing her personal progress. I was like, no, we're doing this for the betterment of Claymont. So,
I think it's great, and
Thank
I hope that the wrestling, the boys wrestling that we do have, that there ends up being some collaboration there and working together.
and it's supported, the boys wrestling coaches have been absolutely awesome and supportive. Same with the youth coaches. Everyone's been, the whole community has been, I've not heard one single negative thing said about it. Every person is all on board with it and wanting to see it happen.
It's great. Well, thank you. Appreciate what you've done.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Todd.
Unless, no one turned in anything.
Okay, administrative reports. We've received, quite a few I'm gonna start out with, CEA.
Nate's the only one here.
Nothing to report. Oaksy,
No one's here.
no one's here. And does any of the principals want to, well, Jessica, Mrs. Khan, Mr. Rent,
Jody wants to share.
Jody wants to share, okay? You go
I
right
didn't know
ahead,
if I
Jody.
had the right to say something during accommodations, but last Thursday was a Project Lead the Way showcase. And I thought if Mr. Watkins was here, he would point it out. We have 2 8th graders that went to the Project Lead the Way showcase and got 3rd place overall in their division. And that was Grace Canfield and Allie Robson.
Thank you, Jody.
Let's say to the placed, but we're females. And it's hard for females to get into science, and it's the way that those girls have competed and placed. So it's a great thing for them. You want to share, Bess?
Wanted to share because I didn't do an update, so just a couple small things. We did we secured monies for E-rate, and that's to offset our internet access, internet costs for the year. That's for next school year. It's around $48,000 that we were awarded. So that will offset those bills. That's an 80% discount of what the total amount is for all of the internet and access. Next Monday, May 15th, the stadium roof of storage building will be started. The first of the 2 bad storms that we had in a row there about a month ago, took a lot of the roof shingles off. We've got them covered right now. We didn't have any damage luckily to anything inside, any of the uniforms or anything that's there, but that is going to be replaced. That's insurance money, as well as we had our gate was damaged, our main gate, and another fence, the white fence around the home locker room. So that's all getting taken care of. I think we had $1,000 deductible, Kim.
Yes.
So that's underway. Also, we have some flooring projects scheduled in every building, pretty much, every building. So we've got the middle school foyer is done. Then we jumped here to central office doing some things, and then once school's out, then we've got projects at the intermediate, middle school, primary and elementary school that are happening. So, and that'll be more in the month of June. And the greenhouse is coming together. It's all together now, not in pieces, and all the pieces were here, so that was good. I've been working with Mrs. Khan, they've had a lot of testing going on, so I've had to kind of have the trades kind of hold off and getting the utilities because they need to drill through the building and make noise and all of that. So we're trying to get that finished up so we can get that all working. And then our scissor lift, that is part of the BWC grant that we were awarded in December, is supposed to be here in the next 2 weeks. So I'm very excited about that. I have no idea scissor lifts. You know, when you need to change a light bulb that's 40 feet high and you think it's simple, but it's not. So I'll be very happy to have a nice piece of equipment that'll allow us to do that safely. And then we did have a large repair that we needed to make to the high school chiller that is finished. You know, it's really tough to have to put money into something we know is going to be replaced 6 months from now, but you know, we have a lot of events at the high school, and I don't think anybody, graduation, everything going on, would want to be in a hot stifling gym. So that has been repaired. Everything's done there. So any questions you have for me with building grounds? We've got the stuff started across the street. You probably noticed that. That's right when they said we were going to start. Some inconveniences, but I think between all of the people, Eric, Jeff, myself, we're all kind of tweaking the plan and how to plan and tweak things. And I think it went as good as it could have today. So I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Eric, do you have anything to add? Does they need a bus driver? They need a bus driver.
Yeah,
Hot too? You're getting greedy.
yeah. And then Eric and his team, we put together a video, so if you see it on Facebook later tonight, need for bus drivers. FFA competed or went to the state convention. And we didn't have bus drivers to take the trips because we didn't have anybody who was able to sub to take them. We had somebody who would go, but no one that would run their route. So Mrs. Burns has her van endorsement. She drove some, and then Lois found somebody to escort the rest of them down. Without that, we wouldn't have been able to take our full group of kids down to Columbus. I just can't say that needing bus drivers is, we need them. We have to transport kids to and from school. It's just the hardship of parents driving them to games. It's happened this past year, but at times, and it may continue, and we're not the only ones in the same boat. But if you look on Facebook this evening, there's a video where our transportation team said, we need you. So that was led by Eric. Update on the bus situation. Those 3 new buses are into our working fleet. We have cut the check for the 97,000 something was per bus. And we're still working on the surcharge that they assessed. So we have not paid that surcharge. So I met with them a couple of weeks ago, and then I contacted Omarisa, and their group went through their packet of bidding materials, and they've taken it from that point forward. I understand the surcharge from international and why they're putting surcharges in, but we also had that purchase order. So, but that's where it stands at the moment. And I don't know, Kim, if you want to add anything more to that, then.
No. Other than we checked with legal and they agreed with us that they accepted our order. They provided us the buses, so they need to honor the price they gave us. So, and then like Brian said, he talked to Omarisa, and we can't find it in any of their bid pack pricing that there was supposed to be any surcharge. So they're kind of stepping in too and trying to help us with it.
Okay, Cindy, you have a Buckeye?
Yes, Buckeyes board meeting for this month is moved to tomorrow because we're gonna hopefully sell a house. So we have that this week. Next week, Tuesday, Wednesday is the, excuse me, high school awards recognition. Thursday is the adult ed recognition. So we are very busy this week and next week at Buckeye, so.
And then Heather. You have,
You guys received this in your packet from me, and every year I'm required to review my funds. So, and this is an open forum, if anybody, I have to basically advertise this, so if anybody wants to come in and ask questions or have anything to say, they do, and I just need to review it with you. So if you flip over on the back, it's, I can do it. Yeah, is it not letting you do it? They do. You guys have it in my packet already. So I'm just on the second page at the top. It says IDEA funds and carryover, and then our total funds. And it goes over the amount that we budget for our staff and fringe benefits and supplies purchased. We also have non-public fees. That's for the Immaculate Conception. So that goes there as well. Our district spends in excess of $3,338,000 of special education services. We did have a little bit extra this year, so that's typically just the funds, but we also had to review our ARP funds. That was extra money that we had gotten, and I still have until September 30th to spend it, correct? That's correct, yes. And so those are the extra funds we got there. Some of the things that we spent those on were we did calming corners for K-2 last year to start the year. They basically have sensory toys in them. Well, not really toys, but sensory fidgets in them, and timers, and anything to help the students calm down a little bit, some reminders, things like that. We did more to our sensory rooms, pressure vests, bite tools, timers, updates to the sensory rooms, and supplies for our future for our students and our teachers. Basically, you know, this is I've been telling my teachers, this isn't something that we have a lot ever happen. So we want to make sure that we get the things that we need that will last. So, and then we also still have to deal with our disproportionality from a couple of years ago when our speech numbers were disproportionate. And for some of those things that we purchased with those funds were salary, Orton Gillingham training, Haggerty supplies, iPads, LAMP. LAMP is a system to help our students who are nonverbal to communicate. They're on the iPads as well. Expanding expressions toolkits, summer speech interventions, classroom intervention supplies, teacher PD, speech language pathology PD, gen ed intervention practice PD, and support. And then we also had some stuff for the part B, which is the preschool. And they had some iPads and LAMP as well. We also, I'm back on the next page here with our purchase services. Some of our purchase services included evaluation, behavioral support services, OT and PT services. Those are all purchased through the ESC. And then the special education support personnel. Currently, we have 277 students identified as having a disability. The percentage is 16.96%. State average is 15.8. We currently employ 20 intervention specialists, 1.5 school psychologists, 0.5 of that is contracted through purchase services, a behavioral support, which is 0.5 is contracted through purchase services and a DD grant, 3 speech language pathologists, an occupational therapist through the ESC, an occupational therapist assistant, which we employ, physical therapist through the ESC, a physical therapist assistant through the ESC, and we to date we employ 39 paraprofessionals. That includes classroom aides, ISS aides, bus aides, and library aides. Any questions, concerns?
good, thank you.
No.
Thank you, Heather.
Beth, can you pull mine up? Yeah. That's why I just want to give a rundown on the fair school funding update and a legislative update, and also a business advisory council, which I will be attending a meeting tomorrow, which will be the end of the year meeting for business advisory council. Go ahead and, as we know, the governor passed or submitted his budget to the House back in February. And then in April was introduced as a bill with the House of Representatives. It had been passed and it was going to the Senate. And then the Senate and House conference committees will then convene, and the deadline for this to be passed will be June 30th. And then the governor will sign the bill into law as far as the biennial budget. So those of you who don't know, school funding that comes from the state is every 2 years from the state legislatures. It's not so some years it's going to be up, or some years it could be down. The Fair School Funding Plan started probably, I must say, probably about 8, 9, 10 years ago. We're coming up with a fair way to fund all schools. And what the House has done, they increased the funding to 50% in fiscal year 20, and 66.7 in 25. So here's updates the base cost for schools to fiscal year 22 levels. Governor's budget, if you recall, was at fiscal year 18. So the House is up to fiscal year 22. Okay, so that would be a help to us as far as our funding piece. Funding for disabled pupil, and I have a spelling there, impact aid is phased in at the same rate. So I don't know, Kim, if you want to touch just on that as far as how that kind of maybe hurts us a little bit in the future.
The disadvantaged people.
Yeah.
Right now, we're basically 100% disadvantaged pupil because we qualify for the CEP program, which meant that we were 40% poverty at our last review. As we had mentioned a couple months ago, that the CEP review is up. We should know shortly, shouldn't we, Andrew?
It's the info then, but they don't start anything.
Until some.
Yeah.
But right now, we're not meeting that 40% threshold. But in legislation, they have also looking at reducing that 40% threshold to 25%. So it's still a possibility we can qualify for CEP, but in the same term, they're saying that, well, if we're taking it down to 25%, we can't give everybody 100% disadvantaged pupil. So I have not seen anything as of yet from the state of what that may look like, but I would say we would probably lose some of our DPIA money if it does go down to that 25%. And if we don't qualify for CEP, then
What are we, Andrew, what are we at now? If
There's
it,
only one building that's above board.
Right.
Most are, I like to say, within
35%. So, and then the disadvantage rate would be based on what our percentage is. So we're looking at 35%. So even if they would drop it, we wouldn't be at the 100, but we would be at the high end
for CEP.
for CEP. That's what I was thinking. I mean, is that how it would be worked?
That's the way I'm understanding it.
Well, yeah, the way we're thinking it's gonna go through, we haven't seen anything.
We haven't seen
lately,
anything yet.
So,
Because you would think if it was
Yeah.
yeah.
the use of guarantee, basically it says that no school will lose less money than they did in 21. So we will be guaranteed at least that money for fiscal year 21. Then school funding continued. They're going to do some studies, cost disadvantage study, access to all-day kindergarten, including barriers or operating kindergarten age cutoffs. There are school districts that do not offer all-day kindergarten. Prior to fair school funding, school kindergarten was only funded at half day, and school districts were picking up the extra cost. Most people don't realize that it was only funded for half day kindergarten. But a lot of schools for many years have been providing full day. And then they want to do an impact on the student wellness and success fund measures and see how well it was. Next in is going into the literacy. Governor DeWine really proposed the science of reading and using evidence-based practices for that. They would provide 111 million, and a governor wanted $174 million for that science of reading. good thing is we are ahead of the game in some of the districts because we have Wharton Gillingham, Haggerty, Foundations are all programs that we have within that science of reading realm. And the other one is letters. So we are well ahead of the game in some school districts. Go ahead. Third grade guarantee. If this would pass and it stays in, it would eliminate the third grade guarantee that students don't pass the reading assessment. They aren't held back. Being a former elementary principal that had third graders and looking at Richard nodding, I mean, there's times where that gets very stressful for the students and also for the parents and also for the staff. But what they're requiring are things that we already do anyway. You know, requiring intervention and remediation services for below level. And also, the other thing is they're eliminating the fall assessment if this would pass. And then minimum teacher salary. It would be right now, current minimum teacher salary at base is $30,000. If this would pass, a jump to $40,000. And also it said in there that it would increase the state minimum by $79.5 million annually. So just that impact that there are districts around that aren't at that minimum base starting salary and maybe well below that, but that's what they're looking at increase. It would be the increases into it. So educator license at resident educator from 4 to 2 years. It would require that we offer a PD day for every teacher to observe a veteran teacher. I'm not sure how that would work if you were at the top of the seniority list and who in your district would you observe if you're the most senior. I think that is for the new teachers coming in is how the intent of that is. And then going back to the old days where we had our license bannings, I personally have my license within elementary 1-8, and I have a K-12 special ed. This will go back to pre-K-8 and 6-12 for the high school. It gives us a lot more flexibility within the veteran teachers with that 1-8. There's a lot of that teach junior high that could be teaching social studies, science, etc. Versus the band. So that passing that'll go. Transportation, basically, this is saying that we have to provide some way to get kids to school and how we get them to school and on a time that's a start and stop time of school. Right now, they can't arrive any more than a half an hour before. I can get pretty open in this. I think out the door or out of the box type of scenario. I don't want to drop a kid off 45 minutes prior to, but it has. Does it this kind of open it up that doesn't have to be within a half an hour? I don't know. So I don't know what they're gonna have to clean that up as far as intent. The last bullet there, we do have buses that are used for private use or can be used for private use. Now we can do a rent, basically our van out for private use as well. So, and facilities, the first bullet is that there are school districts that haven't have any new facilities, and they're adding $300 million for this, for those school districts who could get new facilities. Requires a seizure action plan for those students who are diagnosed with seizures, which we already do anyway. Requires meals at no cost to a student who is eligible at free or reduced, and requires Ohio Department of Education to reimburse the schools. And then school-based health centers. We've talked about Altman. And if this would go through, there would be some money for that. I don't know if that necessarily goes to us or it's earmarked for schools and how that money would flow. Vouchers, increasing the vouchers, the competition where people want to go, and how that money will flow with them. So they're increasing those dollars. This is beyond open enrollment. This would be taking that money that's allotted to that school for your kid and take your kid to TCC, take your child to Sacrament, St. Vincent, St. Mary, but that money would flow. Here's the thing, if I'm a family of 4 and I make around $200,000, I qualify as at the federal poverty level to take that money. Yeah, Nathan, that's right. If I have a family of four and my home, my salary for my household is around $200,000, I'm at that federal poverty level when they increase that. So our legislatures are really looking and promoting school choice. You can go, if you want to take your kid, here's a way to take your money with you. If you wanted to go to TCC, you pay the tuition. Now here's a way around that and that those families wouldn't have to. So you can go ahead and go to the next one. And in Save Women's Sports, this is more of a transgender piece here. As far as making sure that basically females are participating against females in female sports. So this one there was some legislation talk today. It's still in committee. They're still talking. Ohio High School Athletic Association. If I go and say I'm transgender and I can go participate with a sport and I walk in and I'm competing with Mrs. Granderson and we're doing weightlifting and I could lift more than her, then I am then taking that spot away from her. So that's what we're trying to look at to eliminate from what they have for this bill. We'll see where that one flies. But the Ohio High School Athletic Association has some things against that to help prevent. The Parents' Bill of Rights. School personnel are encouraged to withhold a parent information concerning their health information, well-being unless disclosed by a recent abuse, abandonment, neglect. So those are the type of things that we don't do anyway, as far as going around and giving confidential information. Establishing a process under the district to written concerns of parents about topics addressed by the bill. Notice of sexual explicit materials. You must review the materials for the instruction and notice about healthcare. If you have a telehealth, which in those bullets, we do that anyway. And then CCP, this is one big change and hopefully it'll come back and we'll see some different things off of this, but requires public colleges to ensure that open sources in lieu of purchase textbooks. For colleges, you use textbooks and open source materials and the college must pay for the textbook. I don't want to put Kim on the spot again, but I know our textbook for CCP is an exorbitant amount of money every year when kids do CCP. So hopefully that is something that's really will hopefully change. And that's in legislation for Senate Bill 104. And then last, I think we're continuing to move on. The pre-apprenticeship, this is a business advisory council. As I said, it meets tomorrow. They are going to try to submit and receive a 5-star business advisory council rating. They felt what they do within the ESC could get them a 5-star rating. So we'll see how they would work that tomorrow. Pre-apprenticeships, I want to commend these students of pre-apprenticeships. And the pre-apprenticeship is an area where a child can earn graduation credit. And also when an employer may look at those things as far as, hey, you have a pre-apprenticeship in these particular areas, they'll look higher upon you. I don't know too many schools that have the pre-apprenticeships at their high school more so than we do. And as a testament to Mrs. Kahn. Nate Burton, Dax Peters, Caitlin McCabe, Michaela Frank, Isaiah Johnson, and Jesse Seibert. So I want to congratulate those young adults. And then the last one, I believe, and that may be it. No. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
Do we have any more administrative reports? Board discussion items?
I have a couple here. So a question arose to me about coaching. We've had a hard time filling our volleyball position, and we finally have that on the agenda tonight. A question asked with us, it usually goes out to CEA. Do other districts use OPSI employees to fill their coaching vacancy?
The answer to that is yes. I do know that some districts do. I know 2 local districts particular. But it falls with under the hourly rate that an employee can make in overtime. And how does that person able to get their hourly rate without working in overtime? And so that's why schools primarily don't have their coaching or OT members coaching.
Because it's all,
Mhm.
it's considered overtime. I mean,
So-
what do they pay? Do other districts pay them the overtime?
No, I've talked to a couple districts and first they told me, don't even try it. If you don't have it, don't try it. But I'm like, but what is it? You know, they've come up with a way to kind of go around the system, circumvent the
don't-
system
without-
where they fill out timesheets and basically, once they get up to a certain amount, then basically they're done.
Coaching.
They're not coach, yeah, you have to remove them from being a coach if they get to their number before the season's over.
You mean the amount of the stipend, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, at an hourly rate. Which you have to look at the overtime rate, then if they're a 40-hour-a-week position, they're automatically in overtime anytime they go to practice. So then you're gonna look at their overtime rate.
Can can we talk about this one and later off the record? Because I don't want to get other districts in trouble because of
Yeah.
what they're currently doing.
Okay.
Because if they're not having issues, I don't want us speaking tonight making them have issues.
Thinking the same. Right.
That's fair. And then on our agenda tonight, for the substitutes that we approved in November. And then I just want to have the on here, just discussion on how's it going. I know we had some, we had to get used to, some hiccups or whatever. How's it going now? Are we benefiting from it? I mean, I see that was in our packet on the update. Are we still, as administrators, are we still calling subs? Are we using this? I mean,
I'm probably, guilty, I don't wait till the last minute. Once I know that the teacher out, I'm gonna call them. And that's just me.
what are,
I do the same, if I know that they're out, and I have more than one out. I'll get on my money and stuff, and then make phone calls, because, like, I wanna try to build it as soon as possible, so I'm not sure, because a lot of things get pushed around in their attention, so I don't wait till the end, I have had some take it up far out in advance, because they can go on and see. But if within a week or two and they're empty, I do start making as many phone calls as possible, because I don't want these for you, but all.
right? This is fine, this is.
This is Margaret, does that in our building, I don't think she calls a lot, we have like 4 main subs who fit with almost everything. So, I mean, if anything, if she knows ahead of time, she could say, hey, the teacher's gonna be on Friday, but I don't think we do a lot of calling.
And I think as long as the things that are in advance have been awesome. The morning of stuff is.
That's when you call.
That's, you know, I've had a situation that I'm very much, but because I think coaching more.
So how much is it? And I know we had a side discussion on that. I mean, so what is the district paying for this service?
You mean total?
Yeah,
I don't.
Well,
know. I mean, it's 160, like around, it's about $116 per day for a full day sub,
106, you said?
116.
Okay, so
It's like 115 something. I think if you had rounded up, it's like 116.
So there's not a flat fee that you pay to the subservice?
Yeah, it's this one,
That just only on the days that you need them? Or do you-
right,
are you-
that it's filled.
That's, okay.
They just charge by fill rate.
Yeah,
Yes,
wherever they fill.
if they can find somebody, they send, and then that's what they bill us off of.
right.
Are we having trouble filling subs? I mean, even with this service?
Yes, I just say, I would say. When substitutes back in the early nineties, there were a lot more people going into education. So you had, I'll just say you had a Tappan Lake full of subs. And now we're down to a mud puddle of available subs. And I would say and that is for not just teaching subs, but this is for any kind of subs. But it's just, there aren't that many people out there. Whether they're not going into education or for whatever reason. I know when I was principal, I'd have a list of probably 50 people when I first started being principal. And then toward the end of it, I'd have, half that. There's the competition piece of it is, if I live in Philly, and I want to work, I can work in Philly every day. If I live here, I could work here every day. It's just, that's best my scenario is, we have Tappan Lake and then we're down to a mud puddle.
Right.
And this company has helped increase our available subs. I mean, I presented you the fill rates that they have since they have taken over. I do think that, we were at the high school work conference and Mr. Page, he's like a bloodhound. He will try to find a sub no matter where they are, if it's underneath a rock. He works really hard at trying to fill. But even if he still goes shorthanded, even though as hard he works at it.
Do you think it's been better though, since we've had the sub-service?
Oh,
Versus
yeah.
prior
Yeah.
years before
I mean, I've
COVID?
got a few new ones that I've never had before, but normally I go for it's, I'm gonna build and, keep it up again, next Friday, I'm already.
And just to also say, when we were getting ready for negotiations, that was one piece that we kind of talked about, and I did some background work on that too. And I think I had done it for this school year. There was an average of about, I think it was about 12% of teachers each day calling off. So, I mean, that's a lot. I mean, if we're right around probably between 120, 130 teachers. So if you're saying 12%, I mean, you're looking at a day. That's the average.
And I want to say, as principal, we kind of help each other in the morning. You got an extra sub, we're texting each other left and right.
And the permanent building subs we have are prices.
Yeah,
Those are the ones that are in place, it's really price have those daily to know you have that.
Like the figure, the thing that was shared, like May of 2023, you have 92.5%. We're only in the May 8th. I mean, is that percentage going to throw? I mean, it's higher.
It's probably the pre-planned stuff. It's already been picked up.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
when I asked for the fill rates, I mean, when I got that, I assumed that was for the first week that they had it. I don't know. I did not go back and clarify. Was that for the first week of May last year? I did not clarify that. Because it would, whether they did all of last May for last year and say that they were in school 20 days, or did they just do the first week in comparison? I don't have that answer.
I have a question on,
16 call.
on your part of it, on the D. So I'm sorry I didn't reach out sooner, literally just landed at 3:40 this afternoon.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing anything about a RIF. Did we talk about this?
It's been in an update. But yes, what this is, that those individuals are to change their times and their schedules, they have to go through the RIF, and then there'll be a rebid for the positions. I don't expect any changes from where they're at. But within contract, I mean, if you want to change more than a half hour within time, you have to go through this process.
So we're not losing any, like when I read reduction in force, I go, oh,
This is just a step in this is a process that had to go through.
for
the-
contract,
for
have to go through
contract.
this because we want to change their start time or end time or
More than-
combination of
More than
both.
15
Yeah,
minutes.
or your potential, like your duties, which will go within that. I mean, so,
Well, Susan Harris and Corey Sproul, I know are custodians. Jalen is as well.
Mhm.
Denise, you were hiring Denise. and
Denise is, I saw her name up
She's
here.
under A.
She's gonna be a custodian, and then Linda Davis is at the intermediate,
Right.
or she
we're looking
was,
at-
right? She's a library person? Is
Yes,
that still what she is?
Mhm.
and she will be coming back to the intermediate with how we would divide up the duties that we have or the responsibilities for the jobs that we needed for her for next year.
We did
She's
this
going
last year.
back.
I did the same thing, questioned it. They do this every year. So that if they change something, then for their contract, they have to be riffed and then put in the position.
So if we, right, for some of those here,
Is he starting earlier? Or I guess I'm just trying to understand, like, cause you know, when I think I see
Yeah.
the librarian, I'm thinking, what about,
currently.
their buildings?
Currently, like Susan and Corey come in at 6 o'clock. We want to change their hours and come in at 6:30.
Okay,
So you have to riff them to then have them bid back on that job to come in at 6:30 instead of 6. That's just, it's contract.
is that what we're doing with Mrs. Davis?
Mrs. Davis, we're going to look at having her responsibilities. She will be working with library and she'll be working with classroom aid and she'll also do some ISS. So that she's bid on those positions for next year.
Okay,
We're not losing library, are we?
I guess that's what I'm just trying to understand. Yeah.
But it's not gonna be considered special anymore.
Correct. Library will be an extra special. So they will have time that each student will be able to get to go every other week for a half hour, 40-minute block of time to get library books, to get their library times available. So that will continue. Library will continue. The other special is going to go into being social emotional time with leader and me type activities. That will be the other special, building that into the schedule. So that's where that is. And also the need for the classroom help and support. And also by this, Linda agreeing to also going to doing some ISS 1 day a week when needed.
And that'll be after her library job.
One, she'll have library. I think looking at the current schedule, library will be Monday. And then Tuesday through Thursday will be classroom aid duties. And then Friday will be ISS duty. And then Monday again, we'll start all over for her.
So we have library once a week,
Library will be once every other week.
once every other week for
Yeah.
3 grade levels.
Currently under her schedule, she has, I think she doesn't have library at all on Mondays, just because of the way the schedule works. And also I don't have the amount of time right now, but there's time within her days where she's assigned other responsibilities, like she comes up and covers the office phone. She has a few more duties because she has more openings within her schedule to be able to do duties than the other staff members. This one helps definitely fill a need for what we need for next year. And there are still going to be library and kids will still be able to go in and get out and get their library books. And still have time to learn about Info Ohio and the library standards that Mrs. Davis should be teaching.
So it's going from once a week for 30 minutes to every 2 weeks for 30 minutes?
Correct.
Because you're adding the Leader in Me program,
Correct.
which is needed.
They don't have the Leader in Me program currently at the intermediate school?
They do, but this would be extra that's on top of that, as far as the social emotion and delving into beyond that, but that is part of it, and then more with the social emotional, and that'll be led by the counselor.
And you think that's more important than the 3rd grade guarantee? Using the library, utilizing it that way? Maybe.
Well, I mean, the No, I don't say to put it with the third grade guarantee. I think as far as, whether I have a library or not having a library, the importance of it is, am I teaching reading within my core curriculum? And then still you still have other books that you would be reading, but that's the instruction of reading is within the teachers, not with the librarian, instructing them how to read.
So what does a librarian do right now? Yeah, I'm.
Volunteers. 4 standards that I don't have with me that they go over.
If you want to, you could that'd be a question you could get back with her
I
on.
can get back on them. So there's 4 different areas. One of them, a lot of what a librarian does is actually encompassed in the regular classroom. So it would be, both people are tackling those different things on an everyday basis, starting today. So right now, when the children are going, they're checking out their books. She will help them find their books. And then they're kind of leaving. So she's still going to be doing exactly the same things that she's doing right now. It's just going to free up some other parts of our schedule to be able to accommodate quite a few things. So having an SEL time that's dedicated, that's led by our guidance counselor, is going to help with PBIS. It'll help with Leader in Me. It'll help with the care matrix. It's going to help with an unlimited amount of possibilities. Right now, we bring in, taking it to the schools, we can redirect that and pull that out of their instructional time. We can talk about some of our other programming that comes in. We're looking at, there's some programming out there for SNAP that helps children with their food and sort of exposing them to different things. So it will be a pretty dynamic time, but it's just redirecting that time a little bit different and utilizing Mrs. Davis in a way that's really going to support the whole building. So.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm having a hard time understanding. I mean, I understand you can't have someone sitting around. But losing the time, I don't know. I guess I'm not understanding it.
We're not losing, doesn't sound like we're losing reading time. We're just losing.
Library time.
When you're going in, it's been a long time since I've been to the library, but that was just picking out a book. So you're not losing. So this way here, you're gaining a social emotional, and what I'm hearing when I meet with CEA and different things, behaviors and social and emotional is always, there's more behaviors and more things are wrong with our students. So maybe this will get rid of some of those behaviors. And now that's just what I'm picking up when I go to communication council. That's the big issue that they're saying. I haven't heard anybody complain about library time. I've heard them complain about kids not knowing how to treat other kids not having behavior issues and things like that. So if this is something that we can address at a young age, so we're talking in 2nd and 3rd grade, that I think that would be a benefit to our kids. I mean, that's my personal theory, to fit it in there.
Might I add, when Mrs. Marsh presented the idea, we sat down with their union leadership and actually Mrs. Davis and discussed this with her. Due to contract to be able to do a justice schedule, because we thought, well, we could just do what we'd like to have accomplished. But in honoring their contract, this is the way that we had to look at doing this. We couldn't just say, Linda, you're going to do this, this, and this on those given days because of what her job description required. So she didn't require, or doesn't say that she could be an ISS aide. Didn't say that she could be a full-blown classroom aide to help and support. So when we sat down and discussed it with them, they had a better understanding of what was going and needed to be accomplished for us for next year. We're not abandoning the library program. So that's not being abandoned. For people thinking that we're not going to be giving out books and we're not going to work on reading anymore, that's inaccurate. But we still will have that time.
The counselor has time to
to do this?
With the schedule that Mrs. March is gonna be putting together, that they will, yes. I mean, there's time in the schedule there too. It's just making sure that they're being utilized also, like Mr. Cottrell said, it's saying, no one, don't, somebody sitting around doing, like, not doing much. Not that this person isn't, I'm not saying
Right.
that.
No.
No, I never said that. I just,
I know.
from what my work here.
Well,
you know.
I'm not putting words in your mouth, and
Yeah.
I don't want people misconstruing what we say
Right.
as we don't value them. That's not
Right.
what we're trying to say.
No,
It's just by putting the schedules together, that would give every kids will still have time in that special rotation, and there still will be time allotted that there will still be some time for single pullouts. Am I correct?
And meaningful group discussions, in the council perspective is something that's good of our career stuff that we have to try and implement from the state is necessary. I know at the middle school, and a lot of full group stuff. So this just kind of keeps everything on the same track. Gives everybody what they need, and allows us to be able to be strategic.
Any other board discussion? Okay, items. No, I'm sorry. Is there any addendums or corrections?
I do have an addition, this will be a correction for item I. Please add Amy Crago under the 2-year contract. Amy is an educational aide. And she's completing her 1 year, and that was an oversight. So Amy would be under item I for a 2-year contract.
I don't know if this is board discussion. I'm sorry if I missed that. How is it coming with the didn't we advertise for a dyslexia position?
We did.
Have we made any progress? Because that's for next year, right? Yeah, right?
We've had 2 meetings that have been after school. There's one scheduled for next week, Monday, and that'll be more of a half-day meeting with the group that you're approving tonight. We had an interested person. They have said that they're not interested, but we have another interested person. They just sent an email this evening who's on staff
Okay.
that would, be able to obtain the credentials and also fit the need for that, what we had posted. So we are continuing to move forward. But as of last Thursday, the person I thought might take it didn't want it. So, but today we start with a new person that is interested and put their name in a hat. So we'll be probably looking to post tomorrow for that position. So
I know I've been reading a lot on it, and it's been a topic in the curriculum end of it too, so you guys sent an email, I just haven't seen it.
no, that one I didn't, because that one came around 4:30 or something like that. So I read it before the board meeting.
Okay.
It might be worth being good, but when you have a list of all the contracts. On the second page, the Adrian attending, are those continuing 2-year people? Okay. It
Yes.
read to me is that they were all continuing, but I think it was because of the page, right? So
8th grade. Yeah, needed a
Accept, yep,
motion.
a motion to accept the,
So moved.
a second. I'll second.
Okay.
Roll call,
Mrs. Host,
Yeah.
Mrs. Grandison,
yes,
Mr. Cottrell,
yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
and then items to be pulled, I believe. Karen, you requested that item
L.
L and M.
L&M.
L and M,
L is the Ohio Substitute Service Contract, and M is the Kid Link contract.
did you want those pulled in?
I want item, yeah, L and M.
I have a motion to accept pulling those items,
I'll make it.
second,
One second.
Roll call?
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes. Okay. And we'll go into Kim's report, or Mrs. Okay.
We'll start with the monthly financial one. I'll do that one first. April. Okay. When she's finishing, I'll get started. For general fund revenues, we're at a 10 out of the 12 months, that's 83%. Using the forecast, the old forecast from November for these numbers right now. So we're at 85.92%. With the property tax underestimated the tangible personal property, but the net effect was negative 265,564. Having underestimated our interest income for the year has helped this. We're already at $81,000 above the forecasted amount with still 2 months to go. So with the expenditures for the month or for the year, projection 83%, we were at 79.78%. 86.1% is related to salaries and benefits. The supplies were at 96%, and we'll be spending more money in the next couple months on the capital outlays. So year-to-date revenues were at 19.2 million with expenses at 17.6. We did have a deficit spend in April of $220,000. That's because of property taxes being front-loaded, again. So now we have a surplus for the fiscal year to date of almost 1.6 million with a true days cash of 144. Our ESSER fund activities for April, we didn't spend any money in ESSER 2. The outstanding amount is wrapped up in the purchase orders for the roof at the intermediate, and we Chromebook cases. I was able to use the balance of that too. ESSER 3 funds, we had $27,831 for April, wrapped up in wages, benefits, social studies curriculum, and project management for the office renovations. We have outstanding purchase orders of 2.3 million, and without listing all of those, you can see what those are wrapped up in. And we have a balance of $439,878. Kind of waiting and making sure how the project goes across the street before we determine what the balance will be used for on that. State and federal programs in April, I sought reimbursement of $177,682 for those grants. And our fund balances of April 30th with total fund balances of $10.2 million. Any questions on the monthly financials? If not, we'll move over to the 5-year forecast. And as I sat Tuesday with Cindy and Lois for the finance committee meeting, thought I had everything done. And then of course, late Wednesday, we got our insurance premiums increases for this next year, which total 7.98% for medical, 5.75%, I think it was for dental, and 2.5% for vision. I didn't have those forecasted quite that high. So on Thursday, I was spending most of my day redoing my forecast. So this is what I've come up with moving forward for the May. They're again just putting a disclaimer out there that, these are estimates that I use with the knowledge of the cost I have at that time. As soon as it's done, it could possibly change, but our main revenue sources are from real estate, OD funding, and our public utilities. Our revenues this year, we have increase of $325,000 for the general fund for this calendar year. As Brian stated, our Ohio formula, funding formula is at 33.3% this year. If the Fair School Funding Plan is approved by legislation, it will move to 50% for 2024 for the phase-in. The new biennial budget will be set in June. That will cover the next 2 years. So using the information that we have so far is how I forecasted like our revenues for our state funding. Right now, for this year, we were 71.2% state funded. Revenues comparing last year to this year, we have an increase. We're at $22.3 million compared to 21.6 last year. But as you see by the charts, and we're pretty consistent. We've got a little bit more state funding money this year than last year. So like Brian also said, we're hoping that the Senate will stick with the inputs of the fiscal year 22 so we can get an increase. Otherwise, if they stay with the fiscal year 18, we don't see any increase for the year. Salaries and benefits, as reported before, we had 27 pays this year for 12-month classified staff versus the 26 pays, just how it landed on the calendar this year. We had 1 less premium holiday for medical expenses versus 2 last year. The forecast moving forward, there's increases in both wages and insurance costs. Purchase services forecasted higher with the move of the substitute teachers from our salaries over to the purchase services, and we had an increase in a natural gas cost. I had to do an adjustment to the supplies because we were running high on the supplies. Inflation and our usage has gone up this year, and our equipment I've budgeted consistently over the years. So with the new forecast I have, these are the days cash when you're looking at funding in our bank compared to our daily expenses. So fiscal year 23, 123 days. And of course, as you move out 5 years down the road, when I really have no idea what's going to happen, I have it coming down to 53 days of cash. And the percentages, we've stayed consistent with 84 to 85% of salaries and benefits as a percentage of the actually, I'm going to admit that I made a mistake here because I did it on expenses and not as a percent of revenue. This is how much our salaries and benefits are a percentage of our expenses. So I will recalculate that and update you at that. And then the cash analysis for break even, I forecast that we should be in a surplus of $272,000 this year. Next year going down to about $14,000, and then we start deficit spending in fiscal year 25. And seeing our cash balances go from 7.1 million at the beginning of the fiscal year 23 to the ending balance after fiscal year 27 at 3.6 million. Here's our top 4 funds that we have in our fund allocation balances. And athletics are $76,000. This is as of the end of April. Classroom facilities, $121,000. Permanent improvement, $674,000. Remember, that is where our payment for our stadium project comes out of that money there. And then our general fund is at $8.7 million. Any questions on that?
Questions that I will email you.
That's fine.
For everybody.
That's fine. Okay, well, I'll move on to meeting up first and a second to approve the financial report of April. the payment of bills as was presented for April, the regular board minutes of April 10th and the special board meetings that we had of April 13th and May 2nd. The resolution for the employee dishonesty and faithful performance of duty policy in lieu of the bond. Approve the 5-year forecast and the assumptions, and also approve the switch from Sedgwick to Minutemen for a workers' compensation and unemployment compensation. And I did get today, he finally got back to me, we will be saving up $1,100 by that switch.
I'll make a motion that we accept. Steve, accept. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Host.
Yes.
And Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move over to superintendent's recommendation.
The items for recommendation, we have approved the 1-year limited contract with 90-day probationary period for Denise Peterson as custodian, retro to May 1st. We have retirements for Cynthia Hughie, computer aide effective July 31st, and Bonnie McDaniel, primary head cook effective August 1st. Accept the resignation for Elizabeth Billy Browning as a 2-hour custodian effective the 28th of April. Brody Rao as junior high football coach for next year. In order to make changes within their time schedules and positions, we have the reduction of force for the individuals listed. The multidisciplinary committee for basically that's a dyslexia committee, $20 an hour for work outside of school, and those are as listed. And continue on the next page. Employing some supplemental contracts for next year. Boys basketball, volleyball, weightlifting for the winter, faculty manager, cheerleading advisors, and also bowling. I want to add that in that side note that Coach Bonifant is not returning next year due to work schedules and his commitment. So we're already beginning to look at a girls basketball coach. We do at this point still have some openings within our coaching. I know that boys basketball will need a freshman coach and they need a freshman volleyball coach so far. And I know that we're still looking for junior high football coaches at this point. Approving the for volunteers for the sports if they have their credentials, as listed those folks there. The graduating class of 2023, it's a very lengthy list, and this is pending on their Claymont requirements and their state requirements. And graduation is Friday the 26th at 6. We have some 1-year contracts, and we'll go through the 1 years. Veronica Armstrong, Colin Clark, Madison Hemperly, Annette Buxton, April Leinert, Haley Slates, and Stacy Patterson. 2 years, Stephen Chambers, Christine Roberts, Teresa Donahoe, Wendy Dorlands, Sarah Gettle, Shelley Leeper, Brandon Lecleese, Adrian McKenzie, Tim Mick, Trisha Orr, Rayanne Randalls, Brayden Smith, Carrie Smith, Jessica Smith, Kristen Trimmer, and Amy Prego. 5 years would be Stephanie Crone, Nathan Kozart, April Nisley, Matt Schumann, and Shannon Vibrance. And a continuing contract would be Chris Cotteron. We have a 3-year administrative contract for Nino Crane-Grazio as our school psychologist. We have a Title III, early EL consortium, which is English learners through the Stark County Educational Service Center. Jumping to item N for Mrs. Burns to teach CCP. There's an agreement with Southern State Community College. So her FFA classes will be used as CCP as well. We have a student teacher for next year, Cheyenne Hall, and her mentor will be Rebecca Stewart. And we have an overnight trip for the FFA program in July the 10th through the 14th.
Thanks, motion.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Mrs. Host, Mrs. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
and Mr. Miles.
Yes.
They didn't have, we need a motion and a second to approve the substitute contract for the Ohio Substitute Service for next school year.
I'll second. Roll call.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
No.
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
No.
Okay, the next item is item M, motion is second to approve the agreements with Kids Link for services. I want to, Mrs. Connor has really worked hard for this student to be brought back to our school system. And there's, without divulging any confidential information regarding that, we're meeting those goals. So this is part of that transitional period. So need a motion in a second for this.
Make a motion that we accept. Stevens. Roll call.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mr. Cottrell,
No.
Mrs. Host,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
Those are the end of our items, and
Do we want to do new business?
do you have new business?
Do you
I
have
don't
any-
have any, new business. Strategic planning is going very well. We've had our second meeting. As everybody here on the board knows. We will be meeting the
June 1st.
1st of June for our third meeting. We're looking at our mission and vision and our core beliefs. And we've had good discussions on that. And I do believe this next meeting will get into the goal setting. So we have a lot of good work ahead of us. So you know, that's something that we've been working hard with.
Okay, is there any other new business? We're going to go into executive session for, with,
Employment.
with no action to follow. So it's for employment and the investigation of complaints of an elected board official. So I have a motion to go into
I'll make a motion.
second.
Mr. Cottrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Grandison,
Yes.
Mrs. Host, Mr. Miles,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf.
Yes.
6:54.